Oh no, in over 30 years of practicing medicine, I've witnessed many cases of stroke that still haunt me to this day. It doesn't always happen after a major stress event, a sudden spike in blood pressure, or a heart attack, as many people think. Some of my patients were perfectly healthy the night before, laughing and chatting with their grandchildren. Yet after what seemed like a peaceful night's sleep, they were rushed into the emergency room unconscious, with half their body unable to move. That image haunts me. And over time, as I read more studies, interviewed more patients, and examined their habits, I came to a frightening realization: sometimes it's our very sleeping posture, something so natural, something we all do every single day that silently brings us closer to the risk of stroke than we ever imagined. Have you ever woken up with your arm numb, feeling dizzy, or your mind foggy like you're walking through a cloud? Many people dismiss it, thinking, "Oh, I must have slept on my arm," or "Maybe I just didn't get enough rest." But to me, as a neurologist, those can be the brain's quiet warnings that blood flow is being blocked, that transient ischemic attacks may be quietly happening in your sleep. I want you to imagine this each night. We spend about 8 hours sleeping. 8 hours, that's 1/3 of our lives. If, during those 8 hours, the brain's blood vessels are compressed and oxygen isn't flowing freely, it's as if we're slowly poisoning our brain night after night, year after year, and then one day, the damage erupts, and we ask ourselves, bewildered, why me? I don't smoke, I eat healthy, I exercise regularly, but the truth is, in sleep, the place we think we're safest, the danger has been quietly building all along. One of my patients, Maria, 62 years old, had spent her life as a devoted nurse. She lived healthily, ate well, rarely skipped exercise. Yet she had one habit: sleeping on her side, resting her arm under her head for nearly 40 years. When she came to me, she complained of memory lapses and difficulty finding words. Her MRI showed white matter lesions, evidence of repeated, silent mini-strokes. She was stunned, and I could only gently explain it was that very sleeping posture that had compressed her blood vessels and nerves night after night for decades. I share this not to frighten you, but to help you see sometimes the things we think are harmless are the very things that put us at risk. As we often say in America, the devil is in the details. And in medicine, that detail could be how you tuck your arm under your pillow, the way you roll onto your side, or the fetal curl that feels so comforting. I remember another patient, David, 68, a retired accountant, living with his wife in a cozy home in the suburbs. Since his youth, he had a habit curling tightly when he slept, chin pressed into his chest, as if seeking safety. But that very posture compressed both his carotid arteries and jugular veins. Blood couldn't flow in, and it couldn't drain out. One morning, he woke up unable to form complete sentences. His MRI revealed countless tiny strokes, accumulated over years, only now making themselves known. You see, each night's sleep is like a long journey for body and mind. Choose the wrong road, and that journey won't bring you renewal. It could lead you to illness. I often tell my patients, you can exercise an hour a day, eat carefully at every meal, but if you spend 8 hours every night in a position that starves your brain of blood, all that effort may be in vain. The good news is, the solution isn't something distant, expensive, or dangerous. It doesn't require costly drugs or risky surgery. Sometimes, it's as simple as choosing the right pillow, adjusting the angle of your back, or making the small but firm decision to change an old habit. I've seen many patients like Jennifer, 58, who switched to a supportive foam pillow, stopped resting her arm under her head, and nearly all her morning numbness and headaches disappeared. 6 months later, her scans showed no new damage. You see, health doesn't always come from grand gestures. It often comes from the smallest details. The posture you choose tonight before you fall asleep may be the single most important decision you make for your brain's health all year. I know many people at 50 or 60 say, "I've lived this way for decades. Why should I change now?" But it's precisely because you've lived this long, because you want to fully enjoy the years ahead with your family and grandchildren, that you must start now. Tonight, before you drift off to sleep, think about this. Your body will stay in that position for 8 full hours. Do you want your brain starved of oxygen all that time, or nourished so that tomorrow you wake up clear-headed, energized, and alive? When I sit across from a patient, I rarely begin with dry numbers or complicated charts. Instead, I tell them real stories so they can picture clearly what's happening inside their own body. And today, I want to share those same stories with you, as if we were sitting together in a quiet room, under a warm yellow light, talking about something that seems simple. Sleeping posture. Let's begin with a position many people use, lying on the back with one arm tucked under the pillow. Sounds harmless, right? But when you place the weight of your whole body, 150 to 200 pounds, on one side of your blood vessels, the flow through the subclavian artery is compressed for hours. I once met a patient named Jennifer, 58, a devoted teacher. She thought the weakness in her hand was just sleeping wrong, but her brain MRI revealed repeated silent strokes. The cause, decades of tucking her arm under her pillow. What pained me most was that she never knew such a seemingly comfortable position had been planting the seeds of stroke in her brain. Another posture I call a neurologist's nightmare is sleeping on the stomach. Head turned to one side. Imagine resting an 11-pound head twisted in one direction for 8 hours. On one side, the carotid artery is stretched. On the other, it's compressed. The result is an unstable blood supply to the brain, like a river with blockages and whirlpools. I recall a younger patient, Robert, in his 40s, a tech worker who had slept on his stomach since childhood. He came to me describing flashes of light in his vision, like lightning bolts. Tests showed his carotid artery had narrowed alarmingly, a warning sign of stroke looming ahead. Just one sleeping habit had aged his arteries by 10 years. Then there's one of the most common positions. 65% of adults sleep this way, on the side, with the head resting directly on the arm. I often call it the familiar pillow-hugging position. But when you use your arm as a pillow, it's not just nerves that get trapped between bone and chest. Major blood vessels are squeezed too. I took part in a study at Stanford where researchers measured blood flow in the brain overnight. The results showed that people who slept this way experienced dozens of mini ischemic events every night, sometimes totaling up to 2 hours of oxygen deprivation in the brain. Think that's minor? No. It's like tapping your brain lightly. Night after night. After 10 or 20 years, those light taps leave permanent marks, fading memory, cloudy thinking, even early dementia. But the position that worries me most, the one I see in many stroke patients rushed into hospitals, is the twisted posture I jokingly call the pretzel. Picture this: your upper body twisted one way, your lower body the other, turning yourself into a human knot. It feels good because your back stretches, but inside, it's a disaster. The vertebral arteries, tiny but vital vessels feeding the back of the brain, get twisted like a kinked hose. A UCLA study found blood flow through the vertebral arteries drops by nearly 70% in this position. I once treated Thomas, a construction worker, strong and healthy, no prior illness. But after years of twisting his body in sleep to ease back pain, one morning he woke up paralyzed on one side, his speech slurred. A devastating stroke had struck, something no routine checkup could have predicted, because the culprit was hidden in his sleeping posture. And finally, the tight fetal position, chin pressed to chest, seemingly cozy and safe, like returning to the womb. But in medicine, it's the #1 enemy of brain circulation. When you curl up like that, not only is the carotid artery the source of 80% of blood to the brain compressed, but the jugular veins, the brain's drainage system, are blocked too. The brain becomes like a city with no trucks delivering supplies in, and no trucks hauling waste out. In just one night, your brain may endure hundreds of tiny ischemic events. I still remember David, 68. The patient I mentioned earlier, he had curled up this way for decades, believing it was the only way to sleep peacefully. But his MRI showed a brain full of scars from silent strokes. When the big stroke finally hit, It was simply the last drop that overflowed the cup. I don't share these stories to frighten you. I know that at 50 or 60, what we all long for is peaceful sleep. A comfortable position to forget life's burdens, but our bodies, especially our blood vessels and brains, don't always forgive what feels comfortable. Some comforts come at the cost of clarity, memory, and even life itself. So I want you to pause and ask yourself, how did I sleep last night? Was that position nourishing my brain or quietly starving it? You may not notice the difference right away, but it's those nightly choices, repeated again and again, that decide whether you'll stay sharp and strong enough to play with your grandchildren, to walk hand in hand with your partner in old age, or not. After hearing me describe the dangers of certain sleeping positions, you may be asking yourself, so, is there really a safe position? And if I've slept this way my whole life, is it too late to change? This is a question many of my patients have asked me, often with worried eyes. And my answer is always, yes, there is always a way. The best sleeping position, what I call the cardiovascular neutral position, is lying on your back with your upper body slightly elevated 15 to 30 degrees, and your neck supported naturally, not bent too far forward, not tilted back. Imagine you're lying in a small boat. Calm waters, perfectly balanced, that is the feeling your brain needs during 8 hours of sleep. In this posture, blood flows to the brain freely, without blockage or compression. Oxygen and nutrients reach every nerve cell, helping the brain recover after a long day of work. Recent studies show that simply adopting this posture can reduce stroke risk by over 40%. But that's not all. It also helps reduce acid reflux, prevents loud snoring, and even improves sleep apnea, conditions many people over 50 struggle with. I remember a patient named Margaret, 64 years old. She didn't come in for stroke, but because she was exhausted all the time, and every morning her head felt heavy as stone. After reviewing her habits, I found she had slept curled on her side for decades. I guided her to transition to the neutral posture, starting with just 30 minutes each night, then increasing gradually. We used a cervical pillow, a light foam wedge to elevate her back, and 2 small pillows at her sides to keep her from rolling over. 6 weeks later, she returned with a big smile. "Doctor, I feel like I've turned back the clock 10 years. I wake up clear-headed. No more fog. I still remember that smile." It reminds me that sometimes the greatest change starts with the smallest detail. You might think, but I've always slept on my side, curled up. How can I possibly change now? Trust me, you're not the first to think that. Humans are creatures of habit, but our brain and body have an incredible gift adaptability. If you give them a chance today, they will gradually relearn. A small tip I share with my patients: don't force yourself to sleep in the perfect posture all night right away. Instead, begin with just the first 20 to 30 minutes in the neutral position. Place 2 small pillows on each side to limit rolling. Use the right neck pillow so your head doesn't slump. And, if possible, put a pillow under your knees to ease pressure on the lower back. This makes the body more comfortable and less likely to twist. Another patient of mine, Robert, was very stubborn. He said, "I'm 65, there's no way you can make me change how I've slept for decades." But after a transient ischemic attack, he finally agreed to try. We set him up with an elevated bed like a hospital bed, but far more comfortable. 3 months later, he admitted with a laugh, "Doctor, now I can't sleep the old way anymore. This new way feels too good." Sometimes, the things we resist most become the things we end up loving. I want you to picture this: your brain is like a garden. During the day, you water it with thoughts, memories, emotions, but at night, it needs to be watered with oxygen-rich blood. If you sleep in the wrong position, it's like shutting off the water valve, letting the garden dry out. But if you keep the flow open, the next morning your brain blooms fresh, clear, ready for a new day. Changing sleep habits is not far-fetched. It starts with the pillow you choose, with how you place your body as you lie down. It starts with asking yourself, tonight, do I want my brain to breathe, to recover, or will I keep forcing it to suffer in silence? And let me emphasize, don't wait until obvious symptoms appear. Don't wait until your arm is numb, your speech slurred, or your memory lost to regret the years gone by. You can start tonight. Think of caring for your sleep as an investment. A good pillow, a proper position, won't just give you one peaceful night, they will buy you many more years of clarity, health, and joyful time with your family. My dear friend, I know you might be thinking, it's just the way I sleep. How could that really matter? But it's often the smallest things that can change the course of an entire life. I've seen too many people, simply by neglecting their sleeping position, lose their memory, lose their ability to walk, and sometimes lose their chance to spend more years with their families. Remember, stroke never gives a warning. It comes at our weakest moment, when the body drifts into what seems like harmless sleep. And just one careless minute can cost you years of regret. That's why I want you starting today, starting tonight, to ask yourself, am I giving my brain the chance to breathe, to live fully through every moment of sleep? If the answer is not certain, then this is the time to change. You don't need to do anything grand, just the right pillow, the right posture, a new habit that alone can save your future. I hope you, my dear friends here, will choose the safer path, because you deserve to wake up to many more mornings healthy, clear-minded, smiling at the sight of your loved ones still by your side. And before you leave this video, let me leave you with one final message. Start tonight. Don't wait another day.